What's going on, everyone? Welcome into another edition of the 415ers podcast, as always on the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network with 95.7 The Game. That is Marc Grandi. I'm Evan Giddings. Marc, my man, how are you?
I'm doing well, Evan. Recovering after quite the sports weekend. I know you had some time with family for Easter. I didn't get to go up to see my folks, but there was a ton to watch. It was kind of matinee basketball in the NBA, the final day of the regular season, and there were so many moving parts in the Western Conference. You had a full slate of afternoon baseball. And then you had the Masters wrapping up. So I'm recovering after looking at 20 screens the entire weekend. How are you doing?
I'm good. And we also had an important soccer match between our house. Arsenal and Liverpool played, and the Reds ended up tying against the top of the leaders. So congrats for you staying at the top, and congrats to my team for stealing a point, shall we call it. So that was fun too. A whole day of sports, Marc. You're right.
Yeah, whole day of sport. It started off great with my team, Arsenal up 2-0, and then it was downhill from there. But we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, love a good soccer match where you can celebrate a tie. No, I'm with you. Look, it was an awesome weekend, and it was really hard not to just stay glued to the television. Like you said, we were able to, go celebrate Easter with family and take a couple of hours off. But we also were kind of tapped into what's going on at the Masters and John Rahm running away with it down the stretch, and also, here in the Bay Area, the Golden State Warriors making history by scoring 55 points in the first quarter. There was a lot that went on Sunday, and look, there's going to be a lot that continues to go on as the weeks ensue. But as far as the 49ers is concerned, maybe this sort of flew under the radar based on everything that we just sort of recapped here. But there was some quarterback news, as there always is. But thank God, Marc, it wasn't a rumor. It actually is something I think is semi-legitimate, and that it was Trey Lance sort of setting social media on fire by a couple of things, notably a workout with Patrick Mahomes, and we'll dig into that in a little bit. But what I think what caught everyone's attention, Marc, was I guess the video that was sort of circulating from that workout, or a photo and a video. And that was of Trey Lance's new throwing motion, so to speak. It looks like, from what we saw in his workout, that he's created kind of a more compact motion, and everyone just took it and sort of ran with it. And it seemed like, especially with the way that everything is sort of circled around Trey Lance in maybe a not so positive fashion, with Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold and quarterbacks being connected to the 49ers. I will say first, before we dive in, it was nice to at least see some coverage around Trey Lance that was not completely, hey, trade this guy, get him out of here, and we got to find a new home and he needs a fresh start.
I hear you. I understand that. It is refreshing to open up, Twitter, and you see Trey Lance trending and you think, "Oh God, what's going on now?" And then you realize, "Oh, it's just a video from a workout out in Texas where he's meeting up with Mahomes." He also met up with Dante Moore, who's about to be a freshman at UCLA, a really high recruit. Interestingly enough, those were three together. Maybe there were more, but you saw an Instagram post of those three specifically. I will say, however, Evan, while it is nice that it isn't, this guy's getting traded, Niners are so done with him, that's refreshing. I think generally most people are making a very big deal out of a video or two videos of him throwing a football. You can see slight differences in the motion, but I mean, it doesn't look drastically different to me. I will say, with his motion last year and everything that we've seen that's been under a microscope now for a couple of years, he does have a pretty long and drawn out motion. He dips the ball pretty low, which isn't good because it becomes susceptible to being, poked free, by an extended arm from a pass rusher. He doesn't keep it close, and it's out in the open, kind of hanging around for a long time as he moves it around before throwing it. So there is room, I think, to improve. And while this new motion that we saw, Evan, seems to be, as you said, a little bit more compact, I think we're making a much bigger deal out of this than it actually should be. I mean, it's a video from one workout he's had this offseason. We know he's throwing. he said that at the end of season presser that he was good enough to come out of the boot really quickly and he was going to start throwing. I mean, this isn't much in my opinion. I don't know how you feel, but I think we're overreacting.
Probably. I think that, and maybe I could be wrong. Maybe people are reacting to, the throwing motion. But to me, what I guess more caught my eye was the person in the background of the video, who was Jeff Christensen, who
Mm.
was the guy working evidently with Trey Lance on his throwing motion. And for those who know, Jeff Christensen worked with Jimmy Garoppolo when he was in high school and sort of helped create that tight, compact delivery that at least was the one thing that I thought was always consistent about Garoppolo. He got the ball out very quickly, whether it was going to his team or the other, who knew? But he did get the ball out quickly. So I think if you want to kind of read between the tea leaves there, that might be something. I will say this though, Trey Lance, if he has a tighter, more compact throwing motion, that's great. I also didn't see any pads on him. I also
True.
didn't see anybody around him. I also didn't see any other video aside from one throw. I saw the best probable throw that he made that day. And the other thing that always caught my eye about Trey Lance, Mark, it's not like I honestly I don't care how you get the ball out. Like it's great if you throw the ball like Dan Marino or Aaron Rodgers, and or you shoot the ball like Klay Thompson or Stephen Curry. That's great. That's fantastic if your form looks perfect. But does the ball go in the net? And does the ball get to your receiver on time when it's supposed to get there? That's really all I care about. And so the one thing, in addition to Jeff Christensen in the background, that caught my eye about this video was the fact that it was a perfect spiral, because Trey Lance does not always throw a perfect spiral. So if you can do that consistently over and over again, and we'll find out in OTAs coming up in May if that's the case, then this is a great sign. But until I see it actually on the field and in pads, I'm with you. This is way overblown.
You took the words out of my mouth. The one thing I was going to point to as a positive was the spiral, because
Yeah.
pads or not, we've seen some wobbly throws from Trey Lance ever since he was drafted. So the spiral certainly a good look. It was, I mean, it looked like a pretty good throw, but again, it's in a controlled environment without pads on. You're saying there's no one in his face, yada yada yada, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. The Jeff Christensen thing is interesting. You mentioned obviously Jimmy Garoppolo's, throwing coach, and he's a big reason why Garoppolo developed such a quick release, which obviously led him to a lot of success with the 49ers. You could probably argue that was his best quality, his best trait under Kyle Shanahan and with the 49ers. Christensen also being, the personal football quarterback coach of Patrick Mahomes, who I know obviously we've said was down there working out as well. Those are obviously all related, not coincidence. I mean, if you were to pick a quarterback coach out there, Evan, if you're Trey Lance, you're to pick a quarterback coach out there that might help you the most, that might give you the best chance to convince people in the Niners organization that you are the guy in for the future. I can't think of a better possibility than one who has helped Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been, despite some serious, liabilities, some serious limitations, has been good and has had success in this scheme. And then maybe the best quarterback of all time when it's all said and done, Patrick Mahomes. That's a pretty good combo if you're looking for someone that can maybe do you a little bit of good in this Niners system.
Yeah, like any affiliation with Patrick Mahomes is going to help whatever stock you have at this point.
Just
Uh,
standing next to him and breathing the same air that he breathes might help. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Who knows about osmosis? I mean, at this point, nothing could hurt. But I
Yep.
will say this about, I guess, quarterbacks trying to, develop. Like Trey Lance is still very young. He's 22, 23, and he's coming up on a pivotal season. And I'm sure he's looked around, he's talked to a bunch of different people and said, hey, what do I need to do better? How can I accomplish that? And if this guy, Christensen, can help him get to that point, then by all means, that's awesome. I think it was Josh Allen that worked with Carson Palmer's brother, Jordan Palmer, after his either second or third season. And that's when we saw him take off, when you saw that completion percentage jump like 10 points in the matter of a season.
Yeah.
And I know that that's unfortunately, the comp that I think a lot of people put with Trey Lance is, oh, well, he's going to be a slow developing quarterback, but he's got the tools of a Josh Allen. He's got a big arm. And if he can just kind of fine tune it, then you could get those sort of results. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but it does, I think, signal maybe a more of a trend among younger quarterbacks that they come into this league pretty unpolished. Like a Justin Herbert, for example, or a Joe Burrow are the outliers. Like the majority of these quarterbacks need to kind of, even if they are physical specimens like Josh Allen, have someone to kind of dig in and sort of give them a path to getting better. And it does appear, at least, like Trey Lance is trying to do those things as opposed to maybe just working on what he had been the previous two off seasons before this one. So, I mean, it's clear he's attempting to, try and rewrite some wrongs, whether it be mechanically or physically. And now that he's healthy, it's just a matter of us seeing it on the field. And it looks like OTAs is going to be the first time we get to see that.
Well, yeah, I mean, really, aside from his performance on the field in actual games, which has been limited, of course, he's only started 4 games, didn't finish one of those. Aside from that, I mean, he's done just about everything else right. I know we talked about last episode and in a few different episodes recently how he has said all the right things. He supported all of the right teammates. We've never heard him say a disparaging word. He seems to be doing all of the work that he should be doing. It's just that the opportunities haven't quite presented themselves consistently, and when he has gotten the opportunities, unfortunately something has kind of gotten in the way. Now, you could blame him for some of those obstacles, I suppose. I think a lot of it has been out of his power, but that's just the reality of this situation. So I think you're pointing out something that's important, Evan, that, it seems like he's making every effort to still try to compete and win this job, despite, as we've talked about, what seems like the writing on the wall says otherwise. That's not new, though. I think he's been doing that. It's not a this off season thing. I think he's handled everything the right way. Of course, we don't know everything, but it seems to me, at least from the outside, that these efforts that he's putting in this off season are more of a continuation of things he's done since he's been drafted. It just hasn't quite translated into consistent opportunities on the field yet.